Listen closely, because this will change how people treat you forever. If someone toxic suddenly feels uncomfortable around you, if they grow quiet, defensive, or unsure, that's not weakness on your part, that's fear. And it doesn't come from yelling, proving, or explaining. It comes from something much quieter, something far more powerful. Here's the first silent behavior that makes toxic people fear you. You stop reacting emotionally. I want you to hear this deeply. Toxic people feed on reaction. Your anger fuels them. Your explanations entertain them. Your tears reassure them that they still have access to your nervous system. So when you stop reacting, when your voice stays steady, your face calm, your energy grounded, it terrifies them. Because now they can't control the narrative. You don't rush to defend yourself. You don't over-explain your boundaries. You don't chase their approval or clarity. You respond or you don't. And either way, you're regulated. That kind of calm isn't passive, it's earned. It says, I know who I am, and I don't need you to agree. And toxic people can't stand that because chaos is their language, and you've stopped speaking it. Your silence isn't confusion. It's clarity. Your pause isn't fear, it's self-respect. When you no longer hand over your emotions on demand, you remove their power supply. And the moment they realize they can't provoke you, manipulate you, or pull you into emotional chaos, they feel exposed because calm people can't be controlled. And when you master this kind of emotional restraint, you don't need to intimidate anyone. Your presence does it for you. This is where their fear begins. The second silent behavior that makes toxic people fear you is this: you stop explaining your boundaries. Let me be very clear. Boundaries are not negotiations. They are not debates. They are not invitations for someone to convince you that your needs are too much. Toxic people need you to over-explain because explanations give them loopholes. And when you stop offering those loopholes, their control collapses. You say things like, this doesn't work for me. I'm not available for that. I've made my decision. And then you stop talking. No defense. No justification. No emotional essay to help them feel comfortable with your limits. This kind of clarity is unsettling to people who rely on confusion. They are used to wearing you down. They expect you to feel guilty. They expect you to soften your tone, backtrack, or apologize for protecting yourself. But when you don't, when you stand rooted in quiet certainty, it shakes them because now they can't manipulate your compassion. You are not cold. You are clear. You are not harsh. You are honest. And here's the truth most people never learn: the people who get angry at your boundaries are the ones who benefited from you having none. When you stop explaining yourself, you send a powerful message without ever raising your voice. I trust myself enough to not need your permission. Toxic people fear this because it exposes their tactics. They can't twist your words. They can't drag you into circular conversations. They can't exhaust you into compliance. Your calm, becomes immovable. And in that moment, something shifts. They realize you're no longer a door they can push open. You're a wall they can't climb. That's when the fear deepens. The third silent behavior that makes toxic people fear you is this: you no longer seek their validation. This is a seismic shift, and it happens quietly, almost invisibly, but its impact is massive. Toxic people survive on being needed, on being the judge, the decider, the one whose approval matters. They want you second-guessing yourself, scanning their mood, adjusting your truth, so they stay comfortable. So when you stop looking to them for affirmation, something inside them panics. You make choices without checking their reaction. You trust your inner voice more than their opinion. You stop asking, is this okay with you? And you don't announce it. You just change. Your confidence becomes internal instead of borrowed. You no longer need them to confirm your worth, your intelligence, your goodness. And that independence feels threatening to someone who needs control to feel safe. Here's what's powerful about this. You don't become louder. You become steadier. You stop performing. You stop proving. You stop shrinking to be liked. And when they realize they can't withhold approval to punish you anymore, they lose leverage. Their silence doesn't scare you. Their praise doesn't hook you. Their criticism doesn't define you. That's terrifying to someone who uses emotional currency as power, because now you are self-referencing. Your self-worth is no longer up for negotiation. And when someone can't influence how you see yourself, they can't dominate you. You walk differently. You speak with grounded certainty. You're no longer bending your truth to maintain connection. And toxic people feel that shift immediately. They sense it in your energy, in your stillness, in the way you no longer reach for reassurance. This is the moment they realize you're not dependent anymore. And independence is something toxic people cannot manipulate, only fear. The fourth silent behavior that makes toxic people fear you is this: you stop sharing your inner world with them. This one is subtle, but devastating to anyone who once had emotional access to you. You no longer tell them your fears. You no longer reveal your doubts, your wounds, your plans. You don't give them the raw material they once used to study you. And it's not because you've closed your heart to everyone. It's because you've become discerning. Toxic people weaponize intimacy. What you share in trust, they store for later use, twisted, exaggerated, or thrown back at you in moments of conflict. So when you quietly stop offering personal details, they feel the loss immediately. You become emotionally opaque. You still speak kindly. You're still respectful. But there's a boundary around your inner life, and that boundary unsettles them because now they can't predict you. They can't press the right buttons. They can't exploit your vulnerabilities. They don't know what hurts you anymore, and not knowing removes their advantage. This kind of emotional restraint isn't distance. It's wisdom. You've learned that access is earned, not owed, that not everyone deserves your story. And when you make that shift, your presence changes. You feel safer inside yourself, more contained, more whole. Toxic people sense this immediately. They ask more questions. They probe, they test. They try to pull you back into oversharing. But you stay grounded. You don't over-disclose. You don't fill silences with confessions. You don't seek connection through self-exposure. And that restraint reads as strength. Because the moment someone realizes they no longer have access to your inner world, they realize they've lost their grip on you. That's not just uncomfortable for them. Yes. That's frightening. The fifth silent behavior that makes toxic people fear you is this: you stop seeking their approval for your decisions. Listen carefully. This is a subtle but seismic shift in power dynamics. Toxic people thrive on your hesitation, your doubt, your constant need for reassurance. They want you to weigh every choice through their lens so they remain indispensable. But when you stop doing that, everything changes. You make decisions without hesitation. You trust your instincts. You weigh your own values over their judgment. And here's the most important part. You do it silently, without announcements, without confrontation. It's not arrogance. It's self-respect. It's the quiet, unwavering confidence that says, I am capable of navigating my life. I do not need your stamp of approval. Toxic people can't tolerate this because their influence wanes. They feel powerless when your choices are no longer contingent on their reactions. You've removed the strings they used to pull. You're no longer puppeted by their need for dominance. And it's not just about big decisions. It's the everyday ones, the way you speak, the way you present yourself, the way you respond to tension. Every small act of autonomy chips away at the authority they thought they held over you. When they realize they can't dictate your actions, control your responses, or manipulate your path, they experience fear. Not just fear of losing influence, but fear that they've underestimated you all along. The beauty of this behavior is that it's invisible to outsiders. They see your confidence, your calm, your decisiveness, but they can't label it as aggression or confrontation. It's simply a presence that refuses to be controlled. And that presence, that is the beginning of true freedom from their toxicity. The sixth silent behavior that makes toxic people fear you is this: you stop reacting to their manipulations. This is where real power quietly asserts itself. Toxic people thrive on chaos. They create confusion, stir drama, and then watch as you spiral in their emotional wake. But when you stop reacting, everything changes. You see the bait, they throw it out, but you don't bite. You don't defend. You don't over-explain. You remain grounded, steady, and unshaken. That pause, that calm, is a signal far louder than any shouting or confrontation could ever be. Your attempts to control me no longer work. This isn't about ignoring reality. It's about controlling your response. Toxic people want to push buttons. They want to provoke emotional fireworks. They need you to combust so they feel powerful. But when you maintain your composure, they feel exposed, frustrated, and powerless. You begin to understand that their manipulations are a reflection of their weakness, not yours. And that realization changes everything. You speak less, but when you do, your words carry weight. You no longer feed the fire. They do it to themselves. Your silence becomes a mirror. It reflects their behavior back without judgment, without energy, without reaction. And fear creeps in, not fear of you doing something dramatic, but fear of losing the leverage they once had. Because toxic people thrive on predictability. When they can no longer predict your reaction, they feel unstable, threatened, and powerless. The strongest weapon you have isn't confrontation. It's unshakable composure. That calm certainty terrifies them more than any argument ever could. The seventh silent behavior that makes toxic people fear you is this: you protect your energy relentlessly. This is quiet, invisible, and immensely powerful. Toxic people survive by draining your energy, your focus, your attention, your emotional reserves. They thrive on leaving you exhausted while they remain in control, but when you protect your energy, when you refuse to let them dictate your emotional climate, something shifts. You stop giving them access to your time and mental space unnecessarily. You choose where your attention goes. You leave conversations that don't serve you. You disengage from arguments that are meant to trap you in loops of guilt or shame. Every small act of protection sends a loud, unspoken message: I am not yours to manipulate. And here's what happens toxic people notice. They start calculating, probing, trying to figure out how to reclaim control. But the harder they push, the more obvious it becomes that they've lost influence. Protecting your energy is not selfish. It is survival. It is self-respect in action. And toxic people fear it because it cannot be bargained with or rationalized away. It is a boundary set in stone. You don't need to shout. You don't need to argue. You simply manage your energy, and that management becomes a shield. Your calm presence, your refusal to be pulled into chaos, communicates a strength that cannot be undermined. When someone toxic realizes they can't sap your energy, they feel powerless. They fear your ability to remain whole, focused, and undistracted because their greatest weapon, your emotional supply, is no longer available. Your energy, protected and preserved, becomes a fortress, and they can't enter it. The eighth silent behavior that makes toxic people fear you is this: you stop seeking their attention or approval to feel worthy. This one is subtle, but it is revolutionary. Toxic people feed on your neediness. They thrive when you look to them for affirmation, when you crave their recognition, or when you bend yourself to fit their expectations. But when you stop chasing their attention, something shifts in the power dynamic, quietly, undeniably. You no longer post for validation. You no longer over-explain. You no longer tweak your behavior to gain their approval. You operate from your own sense of worth. You make decisions, express your opinions, and live authentically, independent of their gaze. This terrifies toxic people because their control relies on the assumption that you are dependent. When they see that you no longer need their acknowledgement, they feel exposed, irrelevant, and powerless. Their manipulations lose their potency because they can't provoke fear, guilt, or doubt in someone who is self-assured. Here's the truth: the less you need them, the more powerful you become. Your confidence radiates, not loud, not aggressive, just steady, unshockable. That quiet self-assurance signals that you cannot be swayed or broken by their games. They may try to regain attention through criticism, exaggeration, or even charm, but it no longer works. You are anchored in yourself, your identity, your confidence, your validation. They all come from within. And here's the beauty: when you stop needing them to define your value, you are free, your peace becomes untouchable, and their fear becomes inevitable. The ninth silent behavior that makes toxic people fear you is this: you walk away without drama. This is the ultimate demonstration of strength, and it terrifies toxic people more than confrontation ever could. They rely on chaos, conflict, and emotional entanglement to maintain control. But when you walk away calmly, without yelling, without guilt tripping, without explanation, you take back the power completely. Walking away silently communicates something far more potent than words ever could. I will not tolerate your toxicity. I choose my peace over your chaos. It shows that your inner world, your calm, and your energy are more important than their attempts to control you. Toxic people expect reactions, arguments, explanations. They thrive on entanglement. When you disengage without giving them the drama they crave, it creates confusion and fear. They can't predict you, manipulate you, or draw you back in. The silence you leave behind speaks volumes. And here's the key: walking away doesn't mean you're weak or running. It means you are grounded, self-aware, and self-respecting. You're not leaving because you're afraid of them. You're leaving because you refuse to let them dominate your emotional landscape. Every step you take away from their toxicity builds your confidence and reinforces your boundaries. Every moment of calm distance chips away at their influence and leaves them unsettled. They fear that you've realized something they cannot control: your peace, your life, and your energy are yours alone. The 10th and final silent behavior that makes toxic people fear you is this: you live unapologetically in your truth. This is the culmination of everything, the quiet, powerful essence that toxic people cannot touch. You no longer mold yourself to their expectations. You no longer hide your values, opinions, or feelings to keep them comfortable. You live fully aligned with who you are, and you do it without apology. Toxic people fear authenticity because it exposes them. Your courage to simply be yourself removes the control they once had. They can't manipulate what they don't understand. They can't intimidate someone who stands firmly in their own truth. And when they try to challenge you, you don't react defensively. You respond from a place of self-possession and clarity. Living in your truth doesn't require confrontation. It doesn't need shouting. It doesn't need drama. It's a quiet, unshakable strength that radiates from your presence, your choices, and your energy. And that energy, calm, confident, grounded, is terrifying to someone whose power relies on chaos. Here's the ultimate truth: when you live unapologetically, toxic people can no longer control, confuse, or weaken you. They can't bend you to their will. They can't exploit your emotions. And slowly, silently, you reclaim the space they once occupied in your life. Your fearlessness is quiet. Your confidence is invisible but undeniable. Your peace is untouchable. And that, my friends, is the real power, the silent, unwavering power that makes toxic people afraid of you.